Nurses help patients dealing with illness or injuries in a variety of settings. In Veterans Affairs hospitals, there are many different types of nurses, including registered nurses, advanced practice registered nurses, vocational nurses, nursing assistants, and clinical nurse leaders, to name a few. Nursing is a huge field, and EKU is proud to offer one of the top nursing programs in the nation. In this interview, you'll hear from Mr. Mike Hayes, an Operation Iraqi Freedom veteran and emergency room staff nurse at the VA hospital in Lexington, Kentucky. There are really two perspectives to consider in this video. First, Mr. Hayes will talk about his reasons for enlisting and what it was like to return to civilian life after serving in the Iraq War. Pay particular attention to part of the discussion about military life, but how it was always at 100 miles per hour, and how Mr. Hayes had to find ways to adapt to civilian life once the tempo slowed. Mr. Hayes is also someone who has experienced positive growth from serving in the military. He describes finding a calling in the medical field and how his work in Lexington, Kentucky VA Hospital allows him to keep serving. Why do you think it is important for a lot of veterans to keep giving back to society? In this interview, you'll get a glimpse into Mr. Hayes' career as a nurse. He will discuss Imogene King's goal attainment theory and how it is used to approach patient treatment care. Do a little extra research on this theory and think about the ways it could help improve the lives of veterans. Consider a veteran in one of your readings and apply the theory to that veteran's situation. And, as always, look for other skills and concepts that could be useful when studying veterans' identities, cultures, and experiences. All right, Mike Hayes, thanks for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Trav.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you, and it's really exciting because you're going to be the only person in this video series who I actually served with in the Army. We were in actually I think it's definitely the greatest transportation unit of all time.
All times, right?
Yeah, the 51st Transportation
You're definitely professionals. Definitely. Absolutely.
So we served in the Army together. We were in different platoons. We probably had different experiences and stuff. And I don't think I've ever asked you this, but why did you join the Army?
Well, I was a typical American high school student getting out of high school. All I knew was I didn't want to go straight into college. I was kind of burned out on school at the point. Did odd jobs until I was about 21, 22 years old, and I got to a point where I knew I didn't want to go back to school, but I knew I didn't want to work dead-end jobs. And I always told myself if I ever reached that point, there's always the military to fall back on. And that's pretty much why I joined. I needed some discipline in my life. I needed some structure. I needed goals and a direction. And the Army absolutely provided me with everything I needed to succeed in life. Yeah. I recommend it to any young person that doesn't know what they want to do after high school.
Definitely, I can relate to that as well. I was in a very similar situation, and it seems to have worked out. You've since done your time in the Army, and you got out, went to school,
absolutely, and
become a nurse at the Veterans Affairs Hospital up in Lexington, Kentucky.
Yep.
A little curious about your journey after you got out. So what was it like when you first got out? What was school like, and how did you end up in your career?
I think after every soldier, airman, Marine, sailor, after they get out, the volume goes from 11 to 3. You know, everything gets turned down. Everybody has a hard time readjusting, just because everything was high speed and you wanted to be effective in everything, and you felt like your job and mission was important. You were doing something important, and all of a sudden you're just another average Joe in the population. You know, so I had a little hard time readjusting. I had some problems. You know, it was all that adrenaline, go, 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 and you have to readjust to everything. But I think I did. I went to the local community college. I received my associate's degree in nursing. Went straight through, got it done in 3 years. Continued my education through the University of Kentucky. Received my bachelor's degree in 2013, and during that time I worked for the University of Kentucky Hospital and got a much needed experience as a nurse there. I worked on the trauma floor, and from there I always knew I wanted to take my experience and my knowledge. I always wanted to move to the VA to provide high quality care to our fellow veterans, our brothers and sisters, and now currently I'm in Northern Kentucky University continuing my education and trying to pick up a master's degree in the process.
Great.
All paid by the Montgomery GI Bill. Got very much benefits coming out of the military.
Great.
A lot of benefits, absolutely.
Yeah.
Come out, master's degree, debt-free, you know. So.
Well, not a lot of people can say that this day and age.
Not a lot, right?
You know, student debt is an issue
loans.
Talked about all over the higher education environment, and the military is definitely a way to get around that.
Absolutely.
So you had mentioned to me previously that the military, in a lot of ways, your experiences in Iraq and in Germany had kind of inspired you to do a career that would allow you to keep giving back to others, to keep serving in a way.
That's correct.
Would you like to talk a little bit more about how maybe that inspired you to go down the nursing path?
Well, every soldier or any branch of the service you're in, you're always trained in emergency. Just get your buddy off the battlefield. Everybody gets a basic crash course in that. And then once you get to your units and into your platoons, and they'll send you to a week-long course, a combat life-saving week and a half, something like that. And then it culminates with a test and starting IVs, and you get to do all these simulations, and that's when I kind of realized, like, well, I kind of like this. I like the medical field. I saving people, and I just kind of took off from there. And then once I got into Iraq, I was the lead CLS in a lot of the convoys we did, and and then there was, you get there, and if you're not in the military to retire, if you're going to get out, make sure you have a plan before you get out. Just don't get out and go, oh, okay, I'm out. Now what, though? I mean, you got nothing to do. So you have to have a goal. So my goal was to obtain a nursing degree and pursue a career in nursing. And the first couple of years of nursing, I really didn't know what to get myself into, because it wasn't nothing like they taught in combat life-saving, or I don't know, I might have been more expecting what a paramedic does, going out to crashes and going and grabbing people and stabilizing them and transferring them. I think that's what more combat life-saving taught. And then you get to bedside nursing, it's like, this isn't what I was expecting, But then I got to move to the emergency department, and there it was. That's exactly the setting I was looking for, You never know what's coming in. People are coming and going all the time. It's really fast-paced. You're either stabilizing, admitting, or you're treating and discharging, So I finally found the place where I need to be in this career.
Right. It sounds like you found balance. I mean, you talked about whenever you first got out, you were used to going 100 miles per hour and then slowing down to a 3, you said.
Right.
What helped you along the way? Was it family? Was it just kind of time? What helped you kind of adjust to?
Well, time heals everything.
Yeah.
Time heals all. But, you have a good support system, family. And most importantly, you reach out to your fellow veterans, your Army brothers. You reach out to them, talk to them, go through your problems with each other.
Sure.
I think that's what veterans miss the most when they do get out of the military. They miss the camaraderie. I know I work with a lot of veterans, fellow nurses, they're veterans, talk to the patients, they're veterans. That's the thing that I've noticed, and a common thing coming out is they miss the camaraderie. Somebody they can trust on their left and their right. And that's what I did. I reached out to you, I reached out to Scott,
Yeah.
I talked to some of my platoon members, Jackson and Sutter and Woodridge. I always kept up with those guys, and that's kind of what got me through everything, and time.
Yeah.
And time.
Time and staying in touch with your community, and then
Absolutely.
finding your way into a new community, it sounds
Right.
like.
And just never giving up hope, somebody's always got it worse, and it always can get better, so don't fall down that rabbit hole. If it's never going to get better, it's always going to get worse. It's not true. You gotta keep moving, just like the military. You gotta keep moving forward. That's life, that's the name of the game. Keep moving forward.
Yeah, and no one's alone here. I think that a majority of veterans probably struggle with this kind of readjustment to civilian life. And that's a large part of this course, actually, is the transition
Right.
home. And so it's not necessarily related to, things like PTSD or, physical disabilities, but just that change, that going from 100 miles per hour to 0, and then leaving that community, having to find a new one. That's
Right.
hard for anyone.
Absolutely.
It doesn't necessarily have to.
And then veterans get this label, this stigma. Oh, they're combat veterans. Oh, they're a little crazy, and they might be a little violent. And that's not true. It's really not. I mean, are we hyper vigilant? Of course. Anybody would be going through that situation. You're hyper vigilant, but we're no different than the rest of the population. We're just trying to find our place. We're just trying to fit back in, and be effective. Whatever we do, that's it. I think.
Yeah, one of the things I've always argued is that one of the things we need to do in the society is find like a symbolic role for veterans. And I always thought that,
Yep.
teachers of resilience and teachers of, community and those kinds of things, that camaraderie, like you talked about, those are
Right.
things that we excel in. And when we come back home, we need to find outlets for vets in order to teach those skills, those passions and things to others,
Correct.
and really bring those into the community, the larger community of America.
Absolutely. I've seen a lot of, groups, veteran groups come together. There's a lot of veteran-owned companies popping up here. Like the Black Rifle Coffee Company, Grunt-style T-shirts, 9-9 apparel.
Yeah.
I like to see all that. That's good to see veterans doing good things. And
Sure.
yeah.
So let's talk a little bit about your day-to-day work. What do you do in the VA's emergency room, just from the time you get there to the time you leave? Just kind of give us a breakdown briefly of what your job is like.
Well, I think our VA is no different than any other VA or any other ER in the country. I mean, we struggle with the exact same problems all the other ERs. I mean, a lot of it's, and through the research I've been reading here, a lot of it's, the biggest problems in ERs today is ED overcrowdings. I mean, just the increased patient populations. That comes from all over of lack of primary cares. There's lack of access to all primary care. It's just not in the VA system, it's everywhere.
Yeah.
And a lot of the overcrowding and patient population they're non-emergent cases. And those non-emergent cases equal increased patients, and then you have an overflow. But I think the VA, where I work, I think we have a pretty good system. We have a lot of PAs and nurse practitioners, mid-level providers working there, and the research shows that they are a big part of patient flow, getting these non-emergent patients in, getting them treated, and getting them out the door. So I think they do a good job there. But besides that, we wait for veterans and patients to check in, come in. We treat everything. Everything. Except trauma. We're not set up out there to treat trauma, so we send them to UK if it's car wrecks, because if we tried to work somebody up like that, it would take 2-3 days to get all the information back, and the UK can like that.
Yeah, and you're just down the road from them.
Yeah, right across the hospital there, and they can get everything and all the imaging and everything they need, and they got the trauma surgeons and everything there on standby. But we treat everything across a lifetime. From adult patients, we mainly see 95% is adult male population there at the VA, and it's a really great place to work. I enjoy it a lot. I've met a lot of great veterans in our state here. We treat them fair. We give them the benefit of the doubt. We try to help them as much as possible and get them pointed in the right direction of the help they need.
Yeah, and there's a whole bunch of resources.
Oh, an
through
abundance
the
of
VA
resources
system.
for them. Absolutely.
It's from inpatient therapy to outpatient therapy
Correct.
to substance abuse programs.
Absolutely.
A veteran who comes to the VA is going to get plugged into an entire system, whereas a civilian who goes to their ER is probably just going to get.
They probably won't even get a mental health consult.
Yeah.
At the civilian side of it, they probably won't. It'll be left up to them to go seek that out.
So you've said pretty much that you give veterans the benefit of the doubt, and you treat them with compassion and dignity, no matter what situation they're coming from.
It doesn't matter. They get full respect upon entering the door. It doesn't matter.
Good. That's good to hear. So do you feel, in a lot of ways, that your job allows you to keep serving?
Oh, absolutely. It's from going from UK to moving over to the VA side. I have full job satisfaction. Where I used to not have it, now I feel like when I go home, I've actually helped someone. Someone I think is very much deserving of it. Doesn't matter. Once you sign that dotted line, you've sacrificed at least 4 years of your life in service of your country. So that automatically gets respect from me.
Sure.
And if I can help the men and women that have done that for us and provided our freedoms, I walk out the doors with my head held high and a sense of job satisfaction and pride in what I'm doing.
That's awesome. You know, you would hope that every veteran could find that same kind of self-actualization that you've described. So I want to move a little bit into like some of the goals of the course. And one of the goals of the course is to provide students with kind of a interdisciplinary way of looking at veterans issues. So we might ask them to look at like a story written by a veteran or an article about veterans and kind of look at it through the framework of people from different jobs and, you know, academic disciplines.
Right.
Your job being a nurse, your academic discipline being nursing, what is like a, you know, a key concept or skill that you apply in your practice that our students might use?
The whole, in my definition, the whole definition of nursing is caring. I mean, that's what the whole job is based around, is caring about someone, caring about their life goals, promoting health. When researching something in the nursing side of it, you know, you can research the nursing theorists. You know, it started with theories, conceptual frameworks, grand theories, middle range theories. And then we're at the middle range theory part of nursing now, to where we're taking the past theories and we're trying to bridge it to bedside care. So if there's a lot of good ones, there's Jean Peplow, there's Imogene King, Swanson's theory of caring. Those all have good processes to follow and a lot of good information to how to treat people and how the caring modalities and what the steps to go through to, you know, for achieve goals.
So does goal attainment theory, does that fall under that?
Yeah, it's, you know, it's Imogene King's conceptual theory there. It's based on personal, interpersonal, and social, where personal is me and you, and then interpersonal is a small group, and then social is all of society, and it's interacting, communicating with people, and caring and helping them achieve life goals. Really, yeah.
So a student in our class who's maybe, you know, reading a story by a veteran who's describing struggles reintegrating or reading articles about the same might be able to take like a goal attainment theory perspective,
right,
and analyze that veteran's situation.
Correct.
That's good.
It's and King said, you don't apply the theory. You know, you're not applying the theory. You're taking the information from the theory and applying it. You're not just taking, oh, I'm going to apply this theory to this. No, you're reading it, understanding it, and applying the knowledge from the theory. So that's something they need to do. Is read the theories, have an understanding of them, and then apply it to a situation.
And other students in our class, you know, they're taking it just because they have family members who were in the military and they want to kind of understand what their fathers, mothers, sisters, brothers went through.
Right.
If they're trying to help those family members, would this be kind of a good approach to take? Like,
I think so. I think, yeah. You know, it's all about understanding their what they've been through. You know, and I think a lot of these theories can help. Just be open-minded. I try not to force any of them to like, oh man, you tell me stories, or you know, at the bedside. I always just talk to them, and the more you talk to them and familiarize yourself, because we see a lot of the same guys. You know, you start to get to know them, and once they start getting comfortable with you, then they'll start opening up and telling you all those stories. And I've heard a lot of good stories from our veterans, a lot of good ones, and I befriended one, a World War II veteran. His name's Charlie Wilson. Amazing guy, landed on Utah Beach, 18 years old. Wow. The French government came over a couple of years ago, and they awarded him the French Legion of Honor. He's a real special guy, and one of the most positive guys I've ever met in my life. Even going through all that, just a real positive guy. And that's something else that I love about my job. I get to meet all these guys. You know, especially the World War II guys. They're my personal heroes. So.
And anyone can do that, right? They can go to the VA and...
You can volunteer.
Yeah.
It's simple. Just get in touch with the volunteer services, and you can volunteer. And I see a lot of college kids, they need volunteer hours at University of Kentucky. They come over, they volunteer, they help us in the ERs, they'll transport patients.
Yeah.
Talk to them.
Yeah, we brought a veteran.
It's very rewarding. It really is.
That's awesome. And like you said, so what I've taken away so far from this is that, you know, caring, giving people the benefit of the doubt, applying your training, but not like being so rigid about training that you're not open to like listening. And because
Right.
that's the most important thing, it sounds
Right.
like, is just listening to the person and what they have to say and kind of like taking them at their word and then going from there.
Correct.
Are there any other recommendations that you can make to our students who are researching veterans issues, trying to understand their experiences, or trying to better understand veteran culture, that just from your experience as a veteran, as a nurse, as someone who's interacted with probably hundreds, if not thousands of veterans at this point,
Right.
do you have any advice for them?
There's a lot of literature on veterans, and there's veterans have wrote down their stories, and there's a lot of books on it. And there's a lot of books where there's different stories from different veterans in there. Main thing is to educate yourself. Read as much as possible. Go to your college online library, do some just basic searches of what you want to know. If you want to know the current treatments for like the PTSDs, you can look up the clinical practice guidelines on the Veterans Health Association site. They have all their clinical practice guidelines. You can search through and see how we treat PTSD there. Just really, that's my biggest thing is read. You're in college. That's what you should be doing is reading. I mean,
I agree.
right? You should be. That's where knowledge is in the books. So, if just simple searches, researches, like I said, volunteer. You want to know about veterans, volunteer and go ask a veteran.
I don't think there's any better way.
Absolutely, right?
No.
Hands on, absolutely, right.
Well, Mike, I thank you for coming today.
I appreciate you having me, Travis. It was really good seeing you, man.
Yeah, you
Always
too.
good seeing an Army buddy.
Absolutely.
Right.